doing my presentation on Chapter 10 production, and in this chapter they discuss some of the key roles of a producer and how they manage, how they're involved in finances, the business, basically the things that allow them to function and acquire royalties throughout each tier of the business aspects that they're involved in. A few things that they do is when they get paid royalties, it's like anywhere from 2 to 6%. I know in hip hop, I think it's 3%, and from 3 to 6. It's increasingly higher because of how it's so developed. They're doing the songs. They're involved in finding talents, the people who to be involved in certain labels, and so they pretty much manage like the artists, side musicians, the budgets, engineers, labels, studios, everything that's basically focused on organizing and coordinating for music and songs to get produced. They are involved in. Their main goal is to complete a finished marketable product. So their entire goal is to collaborate with artists, songwriters, musicians, and get them to record and produce music. The producer has two masters. They serve the artists and the labels. They adhere to some of the requests of artists and what they need. They make sure everything from instruments to microphones to anything that is needed for the artist to perform or fulfill their need to be creative is what they coordinate. They have to have an ear for songs and the performances. They have to have great people skills to maximize performances. Quality. They have to have that quality artists, from engineers, musicians, label now, and personnel. They all have to have that sense of coordination, that those people skills to know what is going to maximize their success in that particular project, song, album, anything from beyond there. They get some get royalties per album. Some can range from like 2,500 to 25,000, and then or I think it's 25. It's 2,500 to 25,000, with the latter figure reserved for superstar producers. So then they're going to have an even higher for some urban and rap producers. I think per album they begin as low as 25,000 to 30,000, and then even higher to 200,000 per album. And again, some for rap producers. Producers are not responsible for recording costs or marketing costs to be recouped from their advances. A lot of things that have developed from there. His name was Snuff Garrett. He was born in Dallas, Texas. Was one of the first producers to request a royalty for a copy. This began in about I think 1960 or 1970, and then that was something that really began the whole the artists to be their own producers or co-producers to be more involved and generate more income, more revenue through their efforts, involvements. The producers are involved in many ways as far as creative development and how they find talent. They match talent with songs. Certain songs that are not typically written by other artists, they will find great songs and match them to that particular artist to develop a great hit, something that's going to pretty much perform an A&R function, which is one of their titles that they hold. The performance of business functions, budgeting to recording sessions and process, making sure the recording process doesn't go over budget. So a lot of budget management, again, with financing. They oversee the budget that gets pushed into anything from studio time, recording time, the artists that perform, musicians that are going to be involved in the sessions. I think it's very creative to have to implement these fundamentals into your your skill set as far as being a producer goes. Another big change in production was the innovation of technology and how the computer had played a detrimental role in how music is being produced nowadays, with many tools that now producers have that are well versed in. They're able to really make changes to like errors or create like I think it's like it's like a tool multi sheet, or I forget what it is, but it's what it does is it can turn four people could be in a room having session, jamming, playing some instruments, and then they can turn around and change that to where it sounds like 40 people are in the room that are involved in that track or that session, and so that's made a huge impact on how the production and management goes through. I would imagine it would be more responsibility for the producers and how they interchangeably bring in other artists, or just new having to learn new programs, just like softwares to know how to become an asset to these artists. You definitely have to have these instincts to build a chemistry between artists and musicians, and to have to continue to find that balance to what creates a great successful music or a hit song or albums. And I mean these things they're involved in the royalties, or some independent producers are involved in or get paid royalties for per song or cut or albums, like we talked about earlier. A lot of those things change drastically, and so it's really important that these producers are skilled and well versed in some of the innovations that are revolutionizing the industry. Later on you hear about the education and how that's a big role in how these producers are being developed and turned around into great producers, or mediocre, or something that's like a small label to big labels. There are definitely strategies to the industry and how some of these producers create opportunities for local artists that they'll play, they'll send them to a local label, get a lot of traffic, or just a lot of buzz feed, and then these major labels will come around and pick them up or sign them. There's different approaches to instilling this successful approach, and these are things that most producers would get, because their producers are salary based, and then anything else is incentive. And so to have these added incentives to create more opportunity for them to excel, or they would have to have these skill sets, and the salary is based on their skill set and how well their experiences, things that they've become. They were saying that some producers, or like I guess they're commercialized, that they're not, those are the producers that don't necessarily get a lot of business, because some artists don't want to go in that direction, like for like to be commercialized, as they say. So so a lot of them go to independent producers. And there are a lot of artists throughout time and experience that they've actually become self-produced, and so they've made themselves capable of handling that kind of responsibility, knowing the industry in and out, to where they can make these executive decisions. And so there's a lot of these fundamentals that get involved as far as the producer goes, and they have so many hands in like these other cookie jars that create this revenue stream that keeps the cash flow coming in to pay advances, to get it to receive advances. And so it's like almost like you have to spend money to make money. And so a lot of these producers are definitely doing that. We talked a little bit about how their involvement and how they get paid, the things that they coordinate and manage, as far again, the creative side. They have their hand in matching different songs with artists, the budgeting, everything that goes down to those finer things inside the studio that artists would need. And so they have a whole range of responsibilities and management skills that they would need to be well versed in. And so a lot of these functions can, depending on how they're executed, can really make you a successful producer, or just somebody who's getting by.